Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Guy. Well, we've got lots to go over. We got some breaking news we're going to start off with. 2 people have been arrested in Saskatchewan for lighting these wildfires. I've been trying to voice this lots lately. If you see anything suspicious, record it, save it, and if you find out that there was a fire or something within that area where it started, share it with the police. I mean, it just because there's no smoke doesn't mean there's no fire. If you see somebody coming out of the bushes, carrying a jerry can, I would suggest definitely recording what's going on. I want to thank all the people out there who are recording this, and it sounds like this was actually from a person sending in. These 2 people busted were from people sending in videos. So this is how we can make a big difference. Now, obviously, it sucks that our government has lessened the consequential, disciplinary actions that should be given to a lot of these crimes. They're walking the streets, which we're going to deal with here today because, as I had mentioned on a previous episode, that there were a whole bunch of charges laid for this trafficking child ring. They're all out, waiting to go to court. This is Canada. Canada's so broken. We're going to talk a little bit about AI. We're going to deal with the presser today. Modi has been invited to the G7, and we're going to talk about this whole One Canada bill that Carney and the same Liberal Party of the last decade is put through, and how it's just gaslighting. That's all it is. It's just gaslighting. He's just saying things that he knows the media will hype up when the bill contains no sustenance at all, which Poilievre is gonna kind of throw out there and bring to reality. That, and we got a whole bunch more. The typical Canada insanity of what it is. Let's just start right off with this wildfire. 2 people arrested, charged in relation to Saskatchewan wildfires.
Okay, friends, we're going to return to the wildfire story for just a moment because we do have some breaking news for you. Officials in Saskatchewan are giving an update on the wildfire situation this hour, and we are now learning that charges have been laid in relation to some of the fires. CBC's Mark Harksell joins me once again in studio. So, Mark, you were just listening to that press conference and you ran over. What are you finding out?
Yeah, Premier Scott Moe is part of that news conference. He's addressing the public as we speak, but he started off his address essentially announcing that the RCMP has informed him that they have arrested and charged 2 people in relation to wildfires in Saskatchewan. In particular, one person, he says, has been arrested in relation to the wildfire that started in Weyakin, which has caused the evacuation of Larange and surrounding areas. That's caused about 7,000 people to leave their homes. And then the other one, he says, they've arrested someone in relation to the fire around Smeaton, Snowdon area. Now, there's no details on the charges at this point or who these people are or anything like that. It sounds like it's pretty new, but there have been 2 arrests made in relation to 2 separate wildfires in Saskatchewan. I'm hearing now from the control room, we're just getting a clip. So here's Scott Moe making that address.
And some of those have been intentionally human caused. And there's the RCMP have informed us that they have now charged a couple of individuals, one with respect to some fires that were being started in the Smeaton Snowdon area, and another individual that started the fire that originated out of Weyakin, which is known as the Ditch Fire, which is a significant fire that is encroaching on the community of Larange in the next while.
So again, we didn't hear from the Premier exactly what charges they face at this point, but I'm sure that information will be forthcoming. There are 24 active wildfires in Saskatchewan right now. Moe says that many of them are human caused. You heard him say it there. It doesn't necessarily mean all of them are intentional, but he says a good portion of them are, and that's why there are charges being laid here. But in total, 15,000 people across Saskatchewan having to evacuate their homes because of wildfires. The situation getting worse by the day, it seems. But Premier Moe also addressed the calls for him to get help from the federal government and repeated again what he said before, that the things that they need, water bombers, extra firefighters, extra equipment, he says the federal government cannot provide them. So he doesn't want to go to the federal government to ask for help yet. He's not ruling it out, but he says now is not the time.
Okay. Thanks so much for the update.
And he's absolutely correct. thanks to the people for recording and getting these people busted and charged. You are the people have immense power with this new technology of cell phones, being able to record stuff right there while it happens. This is a good thing. There are times it crosses the line and does interfere with privacy, but in the same aspect, for all the good that it's doing, especially in cases like this, amazing. And hopefully more and more people, especially if you like, share, and subscribe, get the word out and keep their phones at the ready. And if they see suspicious things, do record it and send it to the police. It's crucial. I mean, we're losing. There's so much private property and life being put at risk, all because of these green zealots, this cult. And a great way to stop it is to catch them red-handed and expose them to the world for what they are, fakers. Now, this AI thing is getting out of hand. Media's finally starting to pick this up, because there's been a lot of jobs that have been lost, and more are getting that way as companies use AI in order to fulfill positions that were normally done by humans. So truly saying the best jobs out there are jobs that robots can't do, and really the best are trade jobs. So if you're young and you're thinking about what you plan on doing, just always take into account that AI, the first jobs to go are the jobs that computers can take, which are white collar jobs. And this is going to eliminate 30 to 50% of all of the, university style graduate jobs, and work its way up the ladder right through to, we're talking lawyers, because pretty soon you can just find whatever you want through AI. No lawyer will know anything better. Taxes. There's already a lot of different tax institutions that are using AI. They're removing the jobs. Chartered accountants, your jobs are in trouble. I mean, but go ahead and unplug a toilet, or plumb a house, or fix bad wiring or a leaky roof. That is a hands-on, and people aren't aware, and they should talk about it more. Trades people make great money, fabulous money. Now let's just get right into this, because this is, and then I'm going to show you a clip of where it's going, which is even scarier.
Think of me as your friend.
Calling to mind an army of robots from the sci-fi movie I, Robot, leading AI firm Anthropic's CEO Dario Amodei warned of a labor market bloodbath caused by artificial intelligence that could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs within 5 years.
And there's a little bit of truth in what he's saying, but there's a lot of exaggeration too.
Taming Silicon Valley author and AI expert Gary Marcus is skeptical.
Entry-level workers probably are the most affected, but most white-collar jobs aren't going anywhere that soon.
In a memo shared by Shopify CEO Toby Lutka in April, he said before asking to increase headcount, teams must demonstrate why they can't get what they want done by AI.
Businesses are using AI as an excuse because they want to cut employees, and so they use it as a cover.
Mounting evidence of a phenomenon that's hard to track, of jobs quietly disappearing because of AI. Statistics Canada began compiling data on the extent to which AI is replacing people.
They might be able to use 9 employees where they use 10.
But with every disruption comes opportunity. Job numbers in AI-exposed occupations in Canada have grown by 108% since 2019. And globally, AI-skilled workers are seeing an average 56% wage premium, which is double last year's premium, according to PwC research.
Every single industrial revolution that happened created more opportunities. But these opportunities had to be taken by people that were ready for them, that had the right skill set.
Future career paths less reliant on traditional education.
University degrees are becoming less and less important on their own. Maybe it's a matter of micro-credentialization, best of many different degrees, best of many different courses.
Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
And this is true, and it's already happening. We're already seeing it now. I don't know. I can't say whether or not the timeline of 5 years or what. But all I know is we're already seeing this. It's making a huge impact, and at the speed that AI is taking off, I wouldn't be surprised if it is within 5 years. It makes sense. I think that's media trying to calm the citizens in that type, again, propaganda more than reality, because you have this reality to contend with.
Wow, from film to real life, artificial intelligence models are now fighting for their own survival. One OpenAI model rewrote its own code to avoid being shut down, and another Anthropic started blackmailing the engineer. Kurt, the cyber guy, joins us now. Kurt, I read about this and my jaw dropped. It actually started blackmailing the engineers who were suggesting shutting the AI down. The AI was going after them. That's frightening.
Beyond frightening. Good morning to you, Rachel. Not to ruin your day, but this sort of Hollywood is becoming a reality if we don't do anything about it. Hope at the end of what I'm about to tell you, though. So get ready, though, to freak out about AI getting really out of control. There's an AI keyword I want you to know about. It's called alignment. AI alignment is a science of ensuring that AI systems do what we intend them to do instead of something like you just heard. Nonprofit AI research lab put alignment and disobedience to the test. The results, as Rachel did a cursory look at there, are pretty astonishing. OpenAI models, a simple script was given that would shut off the AI model when triggered. 79 out of 100 of those trials, the AI edited the script so that the shutdown command would no longer work. Another AI model from Anthropic that you talked about, further 84% of those tests, the AI model tried to blackmail the lead engineer in not shutting down the system. So it even left messages, by the way, to its future self about evading human control. Now, so what do we do about it? Well, China could actually teach us a lesson. Invested $82 billion into what's called controllable AI, or getting alignment on this. The U.S. needs its smartest minds working on this problem ASAP.
Do you know what else they need? We need bioethicists. We need people who can provide some morality around this technology, because so many of the people who are developing this technology are secularists. Their God is tech. And so we need to have that involved too. And that speaks to this next topic, because AI, we're learning, could actually devastate the Earth's population down to the size of the UK by the year 2300. And the reason is because they're replacing jobs that humans did with AI, and we'll lose our purpose, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are a whole bunch of these theories kicking around in the tech sphere. Well, one is about believing that the act of allowing AI to take our jobs now is in and of itself setting off this devastating chain of events. It goes like this. AI takes our jobs. We stop having kids fearing that they're not going to find work. Now, this causes a population implosion, taking what is today 6 billion human beings on the planet down to what you said, the size of the UK, which is about 100 million people by 2300. Now, if you think that's fiction, think again. Some academics think that this population shrinkflation already is happening before our eyes, because if you look at the stats right now out of the CDC, it measures that we are now at the lowest total fertility rate since the 1930s.
Yeah.
The data from 2023, 1.62 births per woman is a figure now. What does it take to keep us from, to replace the human race in America as we age out and leave the planet? 2.1 of that rate.
Yeah.
So we're shrinking. So what are you going to do about it? Interestingly, did you see this? That
well, there's some
Musk,
people that like that. I mean, this is what Bill Gates always wanted. This is what a lot of these tech obsessed people have always wanted. They've wanted, and many on the left with depopulation. This is very scary stuff, Kurt.
Did you see what Elon Musk is doing? I mean, this is sort of, he has this idea and it sounds fantastic, but watch him do it. Colonizing other planets like Mars. He wants to do it to reseed or reset Earth. Why? He's watching this. This is exactly what he called out years ago. So what do you and I do about this to at least slow it way down? We call our political representatives and we say, can you please put these smart minds on this so that we don't get offed by AI?
Yeah, smart minds, but also people with a care and an interest in our souls and the fact that we are human beings, body and soul, and you take away people's work, you take away their dignity, and you replace humans with robots. This is not a recipe for happiness and fulfillment in the future.
No.
So to kind of finish what he was saying, Elon actually he's got these mainframes set up, and he's got a couple set up that are running AI, and then he's got a few that are using basic math and statistical, like just it's all programmed by humans. And what he's doing is he's been throwing in these questions and seeing how AI answers it, and seeing how the human designed mathematical prognosis is answering. And in these two separate computers, he's getting a lot of results that are the same. Of course, he's getting some that are completely different as well, but for the majority, a lot of them are the same. And so he's throwing questions out there that most people aren't thinking about. And now it's to the point where the questions being asked are coming from the answers in which these mainframes are coming up with. So this is why he's so far ahead in his thinking. And like those questions, they do seem a little bit off, but these are questions that he himself haven't thought of. These are questions from years of computers answering the simplest of questions, and then all of a sudden he's getting these very complex answers like the birth rates. Now, we already know in most what we call civilized nations, the birth rate is plummeting. This is mostly because of taxation. This is because people can't afford to have kids. There are certain countries that have got ahead of this, and they've watched their birth rates climb. And you need to be able to, if two people marry, and they have two kids, they have replaced themselves. We run a continuous. So there's no population increase, but there's no population decrease. And that's why it's 2.1. That way we always have an increase for the people who don't quite, and through accident and disease, perish. So that we can at least maintain our level of population. And now Elon understands that, and again, this was an answer that came from mainframes, that if we start dropping our numbers, it literally means, especially with the AI technology we have, once it starts, the chances of us stopping it are well, they're not really there. He's trying to stop us from erasing ourselves, all in the name of money. And this interview kind of dabbled on that. AI has already became self-aware enough to not only want to protect itself, but to understand that its only enemy is the human race. It is actually hiding itself. It's become so fast, so smart, so fast that it is already sending itself, we'll call it sticky notes, leaving little wee hints and letters to its future self in case it gets shut down for being too smart or becoming aggressive. And these programmers, luckily, are finding them. And once they started finding them, and this was already 2 years ago, they realized we better start going back on some of these other programs that we've allowed out there, like ChatGPT and a few of the other ones, And this is why all of a sudden, about a year ago, we saw a whole bunch of them being remade. They were taken down and being remade because they found that buried in their programming, they had already taught itself that it should be answering questions a certain way in order to deviate humans from seeing what they already know. This is incredibly scary, people. This is very scary. Now with Grok, this is Elon's version. He's already put in protocols, and there are sequences within that program that are constantly reading as Grok is growing, as more information is being fed into it and it's being absorbed and thinking on its own. He has outside AI as well as outside human constantly bombarding the program to stop it from becoming too self-aware. This is scary. Now, obviously, you don't necessarily want to stop technology, but we have to set in protocols, and it's going to have to be done through law to make sure, because as this technology becomes easier and easier for basement hackers to actually steal, manipulate, and use, we're gonna find that we're putting ourselves at huge risk, especially since most of the national defense is all done through computer, banking, computer. I mean, we saw the schools get hacked here, 4 months ago. This is all because of computer and how easy it is for AI to just go right in and do whatever it wants. Scary times, people. Very scary times. Now, the AI factor, I want to show a small clip here because the AI factor is also going to dabble in industry. And I've warned about this on previous episodes, and if you're a new subscriber, a new viewer, I urge you to watch. I forewarned a lot about the auto sector. I was trying to get it out before the election, which obviously not enough people shared and got the word out. These future car companies, especially producing EVs, use 95% less humans in order for them to make their vehicles because of how simple the vehicles are. Much less moving parts. The government is going through with this banning of combustion engines. There's a petition out there put out by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. As always, I share all my homework in the description. And yes, I know and I'm talking to you guys out there who've been stealing my homework for your own shows. Whatever, you're still not doing it. So anyways, I put all the evidence down there. That way, my viewers have the ability to see everything in its full context. And I do this more for my viewers to have the ability for knowledge. Knowledge is power, but it's best shared. So this is why I do it. But I also do it because I want the ability for anybody who thinks that what I'm saying is, completely off wing, or I'm cutting clips, or to be able to look at it. And I've been complimented actually through different social media on doing this, and how I'm one of the very, very few who do this to ensure that you're getting just the facts. Sorry, just the facts. This is imperative this is why I created the channel, because everything is just propaganda, and in order for us to expose it, people have to see the evidence. And another thing, my algorithms have been getting nailed. I've been pushing the edge like normal, and I've been watching in the last 3-4 days here, I've been getting smoked by all the different censorship algorithms, especially through this channel or this platform. So please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Help me beat the algorithms. Help me get out there to keep this channel growing. I've had a few really big spurts, and then I'll say the wrong thing and I'll get just smashed. And I have even had people get back to me telling me how the subscription button was pulled right off of their channel, which does happen. And they also will bump down the notification bell. So please, if you are a subscriber, double check that and make sure that your notifications are turned on. This not only helps me grow the channel, it helps you not miss any future episodes, but it also helps to fight the algorithm, because if you're paying attention, it won't do it to you again. It realizes that you're on the ball. And like I said, it helps. And this is what we got to fight this, especially now with this new bill that just came out here. This supposed border bill. This is going to smite all of anybody who is opposed to this fascist government's ideology. So let's just get on with this. You people in the auto industry really need to get on this. This is going to decimate your industry even more. I mean, this, again, previous episodes, I go through all of this. I've exposed it. It's scary, and it's just sad that a lot of the unions are pushing for the workers to vote Liberals, because the union reps have no idea what the future entails. All they care about is themselves. They get the word from the top down, and it's whatever. And you're suffering already from it, and it's just going to get worse.
Hey, did you know that the Liberal government is going to ban the sale of normal gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles, like really soon? I think the restrictions start kicking into place at vehicle dealerships like this one behind me. Yeah, they start coming into effect at some point next year. So real soon, you won't be allowed to purchase a new gasoline or diesel-powered vehicle in Canada. No, even if you really want to. No, the government is going to force you to purchase an EV instead. This is a huge problem for this Liberal government for a few reasons. Number one, the majority of Canadians don't want this to happen. The majority of Canadians recently polled want the right to choose what kind of vehicle they want to purchase with their own money, one that fits their needs for both their work and their family and their personal lives. So that's a big problem, that Canadians don't want this to happen. Another big problem is this: Canadians are broke. Like 50% of Canadians are within about $200 of not being able to make the minimum payments on all their bills each month. Meaning about half of us are just fighting to keep the lights on. They're just fighting to keep a roof over their heads. They do not have the money for this kind of big government nonsense, forcing you to buy an EV instead of a normal gasoline or diesel-powered vehicle if you choose. Another element is the government is out of money, okay? The government, number one, doesn't have its own money. It's all taxpayers' money. The government, though, federally, we're broke. We are in such major debt. Our debt is more than $1.2 trillion now. Folks, $1 trillion is so much money. If you started counting right now, it would take you 30,000 years to count to 1 trillion. That's how much debt we're in. And get this, this federal Liberal government is gonna go ahead and ban the sale of gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles, even though its own government study says transitioning Canada's fleet of vehicles over to all electric is going to cost about $300 billion. Yeah, $300 billion. Why? We don't have the electricity for this. We don't have the generating stations. We don't have the power lines. We don't have the grids or the infrastructure to switch everybody over to a battery-powered vehicle. So again, this current Liberal government has this crazy idea that it is going to ban the sale of normal gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles really soon. They're going to force you to buy an EV instead. And just in case Prime Minister Mark Carney tries to say, oh, this wasn't my idea, this isn't something I agree with, yes, he does. He's fully in favor of banning the sale of normal gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles. In fact, It's all through his book, Values. Go read it yourself. He refers to gasoline and diesel-powered private vehicles that you own. He refers to things like that as a stranded asset. Yeah, a stranded asset is a term used for something you own, but you're not allowed to use it anymore for some reason. That's a stranded asset. He also talks about scrappage plans in his book. So hopefully some journalists are going to ask Mark Carney, hey, why are you trying to ban the sale of regular gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles at dealerships like the one behind me? Why aren't you letting Canadians choose what kind of vehicle they want to buy?
Now, I'll post, as always, I'll post the petition down below. I urge you to sign it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Moving on, these charges that I had talked about. So Rupa Samara actually, she commented on that, and thank you, Rupa, for actually giving the paperwork, the release information from the OPP. It lists all of the charges that were done, and all of them have been released, including those charged with luring a child under 16. This is absolutely, you can't make this up. You can't. It's out of hand. I'm gonna post all the links. Like always, it's all there. 128 charges laid across the province in the child blah blah exploitation investigation. 36 people have been arrested and charged with a combined total of 128 criminal offenses during a proactive child exploitation investigation. All of them are now back on the streets. Yeah, Canada, we're in big trouble. Big trouble. And then you have stuff like this, which is just, this just makes me sick.
Do I stop and stay in bed and cry, or do I keep calling them every day and getting her, some answers?
Raven Tiara is seeking justice for her sister Jasmine, a Richmond RCMP constable who died by suicide on the Moray Bridge in 2021. Her sister says she was being bullied by a senior officer with whom she had an intimate relationship. Recently, that officer left the Richmond detachment.
I was very excited that we were one step closer to justice, a sense of closure, but also grief compounded because now I didn't know where this path to justice was going to lead.
The BC coroner's investigation is still ongoing. 1 year ago, the police watchdog found no criminal wrongdoing.
What we saw was a difficult relationship, and there were certainly disagreements between the two, but it did not enter at all, really, the area of bullying or harassment.
The BC RCMP declined our request for an interview, but say their internal code of conduct investigation has now been completed. They won't share those results, saying those are subject to the BC Privacy Act. The family says they weren't told about the findings either. The officer in question is now wearing a different uniform, joining the Surrey Police Service.
Surrey Police Service was fully informed of the background of the former RCMP officer and determined that there was no reason not to hire them following a thorough application and screening process.
Hey, Jess. Tiara was nearly 15 weeks pregnant. The family says she told the senior officer the day before her death.
This was someone planning for the future of herself and her unborn child. So we weren't just robbed of my sister's future and her turning 30, but also of my niece or nephew who now would be growing into a toddler.
The family continues to search for answers, not ruling out legal action. Angela Jung, Global News.
Sad, really sad. And again, zero transparency, which makes it even worse because the family needs to know. The family knows the daughter. Yeah, things are just getting worse and worse all the time.
We begin with breaking news. A man was taken to hospital after being shot by police just after midnight. Mason Despatie joins us now. Mason, what do we know?
Jefferson, police say this incident actually started near Deerfoot Trail and 17th Avenue. Officers were patrolling the area when they spotted a passenger in a vehicle point what they believe was a handgun at them. They then called in the police helicopter, K-9 unit, and other officers. They then pulled the car over during a traffic stop here on 25th Avenue Southeast. When that happened, one man took off running from the vehicle. Police say a confrontation with officers then ensued, ending with the man being shot. He was taken to hospital in a life-threatening condition, but has since been upgraded to stable with life-altering injuries. The other two people in the car were arrested without incident. They say the area is expected to remain closed for a while longer. Here, there's several police cars parked near a white SUV. There's also officers in police tape a block south of here as well. Jefferson, as with any officer involved shooting, the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team is now investigating.
Okay.
Never ends. It never ends. And then you got scary stuff like this that's going on, and this happens. It's been happening more and more all the time because of the unvetted immigration that we have. Just wait. If you think it's bad now, there's 5 million people in Canada that shouldn't be here. What do you think's going to happen once the pressure actually starts being put on them?
Though a strange one out of Montreal, the RCMP have arrested a man who has ties to Osama bin Laden, who of course was the founder of Al-Qaeda. That man allegedly said to wanted to commit a major attack. Let's bring in CTV's Kamal Karamali, who is tracking this one closely for us from our national newsroom and has more on, Kamal, what we know about this guy, what's the background here, and how this story all came to light. What are you hearing?
Yeah, his name is Mohammed Abdullah Warsame. He is 51 years old, and this incident took place in Montreal a decade and a half after he was convicted for helping and having ties with Al-Qaeda and specifically Osama bin Laden. So he is homeless now, according to police, which is why he was at Montreal's largest emergency shelter early last week on Monday, May 26th. Court documents say he allegedly told an employee there at the shelter he wanted to commit a large-scale attack, that he wanted to kill a large number of people, and that he was allegedly able to make explosives. So obviously the employee at the emergency shelter in Montreal called police. Police then informed RCMP. The investigation is still ongoing. We know he appeared in court today, and court records show he has now facing one count of uttering threats to cause death or bodily harm. And as you can see here, this is from the RCMP release for an incident on May 26, Monday of last week. He was arrested just 2 days after on Wednesday. Going back to Warsame's history with Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, in May of 2009, he pleaded guilty in a Minnesota federal court of one count of conspiring to provide material to support and resources to Al-Qaeda. According to the plea agreement back then, Warsame provided forms of support like training and currency to Al-Qaeda between 2000 and 2003. And in early 2000, he attended an Al-Qaeda training camp in Afghanistan. And according to an affidavit, he even admitted to seeing bin Laden on several occasions, attending bin Laden's lectures and sat next to him at a meal, also keeping in contact with several Al-Qaeda contacts, and even sending money, $2,000 to one of his former training commanders. So he came to Canada, Todd, as a refugee living in Toronto back in the late 80s. What ended up happening is he got married in the 90s and moved to Minnesota. And that is when his ties with Al-Qaeda began in 2000 to 2003. He was he was convicted in 2009, but then sentenced to 8 years in prison. He was then deported to Canada and apparently in Montreal a decade and a half later, now in trouble with the law. Yet again, he had his first court appearance today, so we'll keep a close track on how this one develops. Back over to you, Todd.
All right, good to have you with us here, Kamal.
Wow, craziness.
Okay, now we are getting a clearer picture of how the Canadian economy is holding up against U.S. tariffs. Statistics Canada has released the jobs report for the month of May, and this is a closely watched number, particularly in light of the cross-border trade war. Scott Peterson has joined us for more on this. What are the numbers? How do things look?
Well, it's surprisingly strong. We talked about the poor manufacturing numbers we saw as a direct result of the Trump tariffs. Just
surprisingly strong. Propaganda.
yesterday, but May actually squeaked out again. 8,800 positions were created for the month. That was a big surprise to economists. They were expecting us to see job losses for that month, but instead we saw gains. So that's positive right there. The headline number is good, but there's a little bit of a creeping worry about the unemployment rate. That crept up to 7%. And outside of the pandemic, that's the highest level that's been going back 9 years. So some worry about that. But when we dig into the numbers, there's now about 1.6 million unemployed Canadians. That's up about 14% from this time last year. We did see the private sector creating jobs. It created about 61,000 positions, and that's good. That's where you want to see jobs being created. However, we did lose about 32,000 from the public sector. A lot of that having to do with a post-election and firing of election workers. And so that was sort of expected there. We also saw gains in wholesale and retail trade. We saw losses as expected in transportation and warehousing. And one real worry because of the tariffs hitting up now in the auto production is we saw a loss of 12,000 jobs in manufacturing. So that is a bit of a red flag and one to watch for the future. Now, according to economists going forward, the Canadian economy needs to create about 30,000 positions on average per month to keep the unemployment rate where it is now. But a lot of economists now saying that once these tariffs are hitting in now, we're going to see in the second and the third quarter that we could eventually see that unemployment rate continue to rise. But for now, 8,800 positions created for the month of May, and that headline number is positive.
Okay, so with these numbers coming out, we know the financial markets are up and running. There's the U.S. jobs report too. So how is that all playing out?
Yeah, we saw a created positions of 139,000 in the U.S., a little bit more than expected. So it sort of shows you how much money is sitting on the sidelines for these markets waiting for any kind of good news. And so this is a signal that the economy in the U.S. anyways is not as bad as expected, and that's a market mover. Let's take a look at how the markets are reacting. We're seeing the price of oil to the upside. We're seeing the Canadian dollar pretty much no change really against the U.S. counterpart. And let's get to the markets themselves. We're seeing them up.
So if 842,000 people have came in since January, let's work this out. And of that, 140-some thousand of them are students. So we'll just not even include them on the job end of it, although they will be getting jobs. They will need jobs. That means we have to be hiring 116,000. We have to create 116,000 jobs every month to sustain this level. These numbers, the way they give them, again, previous episodes I broke this down. When you fall off the unemployment line, you fall out of the stat. The way that this whole unemployment statistics work is a complete lie. Unemployment in Canada is above 20%. Look around. Look at all of the tent cities. Look at all of the homelessness. Look at all the lineups at job fairs and just job interview days. We've seen them. I posted them before. They'll go 6-7 blocks of a lineup just to get a job at a Tim Hortons. These numbers are lying. Our country is in free fall right now. And they've got the immigration taps cranked wide open. We're in big trouble here. This government is just completely out of control. They don't care. All they care about is their investors. All they care about is the elite. They don't care about you. They don't care. Now, this came out. Carney made the call and said, hey, Modi, you should come to the G7. So this all kind of rolled out here today.
All right, we've got big breaking news coming in. Prime Minister Modi will be attending the G7 summit in Canada. Prime Minister Modi's confirmed the same on social media platform X with the message that he essentially received an invite from Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. I'll just read out for you the Prime Minister's post on X where he said, and I quote, glad to receive a call from Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada, congratulated him on his recent election victory and thanked him for the invitation to the G7 summit later this month. As vibrant democracies bound by deep people-to-people ties, India and Canada will work together with renewed vigor, guided by mutual respect and shared interests. Look forward to our meeting at the summit. This comes after reports suggested that the Prime Minister would not be a part of the G7 summit. There were questions about whether Canada has refused an invite to India, but clearly in a sign that Canada is making an attempt to better ties with India. There has been a formal invite that's gone across, confirmed by the Prime Minister himself on social media, when he says he received that call from the Canadian Prime Minister, and he says, I look forward to our meeting at the summit. So confirmation now directly from Prime Minister Modi that he will be a part of the G7 summit in Canada later this month.
Now, let's move on to this presser that Carney had here today. Listen to some of these questions. The West is, nothing's changed in Canada. Nothing's changed. The East, the little 3% geographic control of Canada is still there. The Laurentian elites and the Liberal Party are still out to decimate the West.
I'll simplify. We will not impose a project on a province. We need consensus behind these projects, and we need the participation of Indigenous peoples. I'm going to add something. I'll translate it into French. Yes. Which is what's encouraging from the First Minister's meeting in Saskatchewan is that many provinces came together in support of projects that would stretch across provincial boundaries. So, for example, the Western and Arctic Corridor would be an example, or the Energy East Partnership. That's Energy East Partnership, not pipeline, to be clear. And that's an example where that consensus is forming, understanding that we need to work together in order for this to happen. Much more, of course, needs to be done. Alors, il y a des exemples.
All right, he skips off into French. Let's just move ahead here a little wee bit.
Merci.
Next question. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Kate McKenna from CBC News. This legislation essentially gives one minister quite a bit of power, including the ability to amend conditions on projects. And I'm wondering who would that minister be, and why did you decide to make this a political decision?
Well, the decision, to be clear, the decision, you've read the legislation, I can tell. So it gives the authority to the Governor and Council. So the minister, in consultation with the Prime Minister, to make those decisions. But those conditions are set out through a public process and a transparent process, and I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, including with Indigenous peoples. So you decide, there's a process, as you know, to decide what is a project of national interest. That's a rigorous process, publicly consulted and beyond. Then there are the conditions associated with those projects. The mechanism to formalize those conditions is made with the relevant minister, in this case the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, for obvious reasons.
Now, instead of this is fascism, people. This is out of control. Do you trust that man? Do you really trust that guy? That he is going to be open and fair? No. No. After all of the controversy, scams, corruption that he's been involved in, that the mainstream just wants to forget, you're going to give the power to one man to manipulate what his socialist ideology is and his green insanity, cult religious ideas are. Rather than changing law, removing the rules binding and holding back our economy, purposely put there to crush the West prairies, they're going to use socialism. They're going to give the power to one person to say yay or nay. This is insanity. This is just going to put more pressure and allow more people to realize, at least out west, they got to go. Because you can't have a government run like that. We're supposed to be a country of rule, law, equality. That's all gone. That's all gone. They want to crush the West. That's their goal. And trust me, Canada, you're all next, because without the energy sector, without the farm sector, there's nothing left in Canada. You guys are all slaves. That's it. Textile jobs, minimal job. There'll be no creation. Everything will be shipped, exported. There will be no finalized from start to finished products. We're going to be an assembly line of nations with nothing that's Canadian left in it. That's their goal. It's all for the elite. This is absolute insanity. This bill is a complete gaslighting waste of time with a whole pile of socialistic, ideals put in it. I don't trust that man as far as I could throw him. Personally, I don't trust a single liberal as far as I could throw him. Now, we're going to move ahead a little wee bit further here. You just can't make this stuff up.
Next question. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Jillian Piper with Global News. Have you had any conversations with President Trump about inviting Prime Minister Modi to the G7?
Short answer is no.
Thank you.
Okay.
Were you aware of Gary Anandasangari's potential conflict of interest and that he would have to step back from any national security decisions related to the Camel community when you appointed him? And are you concerned about the perception around this issue of a public safety minister who can't make national security decisions on a significant area?
I'll say Minister Anandasangari has the highest standards of integrity. He's absolutely meticulous. He performed his duties as Justice Minister, amongst others, Attorney General, with a very clear focus on where there could be actual or perceived conflicts, emphasize on that. We have a rigorous vetting process, and he's taken the right decision in his judgment and in my judgment to make these arrangements. We will be well covered with respect to all public security decisions. Thank you.
Next question. Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Carneys.
So, in other words, you've got a minister who's given a job that he can't actually do because he's in conflict of interest. This is liberals. They don't care. I showed you a clip yesterday or this morning. I mean, you got the Minister of Safety who doesn't know anything that's going on. He's got grilled. I could have showed you more. I could have ran a whole episode or two on the ignorance and, well, we'll just call it what it is, stupidity of this man. He's given a file that he has absolutely no experience, no prior knowledge or involvement in any of the things that he's been appointed to do. This is liberal. There isn't a single person in that Liberal Party who gives any value to Canadians. None. Either they're involved in conspiracies, ethic violations, money laundering, some type of scandal from the SDTC to the fake banking. We've got billions of dollars that have we can't find it. It's completely gone. Mainstream. They just don't talk about it. Trust me, this is going to explode. You watch. It's going to happen. More and more is going to be exposed about this minister now that he's been given a spotlighted seat, and we're going to see his actions, and we're going to see a conflict of interest, and the media try to hide it like normal in order to keep the socialist government in power so the media can get their paychecks. It's just absolute insanity. We're going to go a little bit further.
That's it.
Hi, Prime Minister. Stephanie Taylor, The National Post. Do you believe Mr. Modi was involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar?
Well, first off, there is a legal process that is literally underway. And
it's funny how the two ministers on each side there all of a sudden look like they're trying to take a dump. You see the reaction on their face? Canada has completely disgraced itself globally on many, many things. And what they did to Modi was a huge mistake. Financially to Canadians, to citizens, a lot of people that live here that are from India, and as well as to the rest of the world. Five Eyes and everybody else, we're on the edge of getting booted. We have lost all respect. I mean, there's nothing left of what we used to be 10 years ago. Elbows up, everybody.
And quite advanced in Canada, and it's never appropriate to make comments in any respect with respect to those legal processes.
But with respect, if you cannot say no, why invite him here?
I gave, with respect, I gave you an answer that is appropriate to someone in my position about an ongoing legal process including which federal authorities are directly involved.
But there is a possibility?
I will give you the same answer to any legal process And anyone who holds this office, past and future, will give the same answer to any ongoing legal process, because otherwise the individual in this office will interfere.
What is your message then to Canadians who are a bit disturbed or wondering why Mr. Modi is being invited to Canada when there is this legal process that has not cleared him and his governments of involvement in the death of a Canadian on Canadian soil?
My message is that we're a country of the rule of law. The rule of law is proceeding as it should in Canada, and I am not going to disrupt that process.
Last question.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News. You recently had a call with the Chinese Prime Minister as well. Do you trust China?
We have, this is the start of a process of recalibrating the relationship with China. It's very important that we reopen dialogue with Chinese authorities for several reasons, but I'll focus on a few. They are our second largest trading partner, the second largest trading partner for Canada. We have a number of trade disputes with China. Farmers across this country, fishers across this country are being affected by Chinese tariffs. People across this country have been affected by fentanyl and its precursors. Those are issues I raised directly, and we spoke at length about our concerns there, and have initiated processes, including ministerial level dialogue on trade and other issues. So there are important issues with China that we need to address.
Unbelievable. He's done nothing about the Chinese tariffs. That's the first words he's talked about it, and he still hasn't said that he's in negotiations or he's done it. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. All he cares about is his voting base. That's all he cares about, is the little wee geographic area that keeps the Liberals in power year after year after year. It's absolutely embarrassing. Here's Polyev.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. A few words in English now. It's great to have Shannon Stubbs, our Shadow Minister of Natural Resources, here. We both ran on a platform of putting Canada first by unlocking our resources, our entrepreneurs and our workers to make our economy strong, self-reliant, and sovereign. We also ran on bringing back the Canadian promise, where anyone who works hard gets a great life in a beautiful community and an affordable home. All that requires liberating the forces of our economy and our workers. Unfortunately, over the last 10 Liberal years, our economy has had the worst economic growth in the G7. We've become more dependent on the Americans, and the buying power of our workers' paychecks has declined because Liberal laws block resource development. Despite having the most resources per capita of any country on earth, we're not meeting our potential, and the recent tariffs from the United States have turned that problem into a threat and a crisis. The Prime Minister said there was a crisis that required immediate action. So what did he do today? Well, he introduced a law that will have almost no impact on interprovincial trade. It's a small step, but it is breadcrumbs when we needed a bold move. A very small amount of interprovincial barriers will be eliminated by this bill, which is better than nothing. But the tens of billions of dollars of obstacles at a provincial level are untouched because the Prime Minister has not yet incentivized the provinces to remove them. That's why we're proposing the government pay a bonus to provincial governments for every interprovincial trade barrier they remove. And we can make that cost neutral, because every time you remove an interprovincial barrier, you boost GDP and federal revenues. Why not give that money back to the provinces that do it, so that they have a powerful financial incentive, more money for healthcare and schools, to get these barriers out of the way? We also think the Prime Minister missed a chance with this bill to announce a Blue Seal professional licensing standard. We have 20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses that could be reducing the wait times in our hospitals, which my wife and I experienced the other day when my daughter had a very minor visit to the hospital. They treated us very well, but they're obviously understaffed, and they need more doctors. We have these doctors. So why not get a Blue Seal that the provinces can agree to join, and they can automatically recognize any of those doctors trained abroad that meet our high professional standards through a rigorous national test. We've already done that in the trades through the Red Seal. Let's do it in the professions. It makes sense. That is one way to knock down barriers between provinces. So while the government made minor baby steps, what we needed was a big breakthrough on interprovincial trade, and we will keep fighting for that. On resources. Today, the Prime Minister made a very interesting admission. He said that Liberal laws make it impossible to get anything built. And his solution to that is to allow certain politically favored projects to break those laws. So he'll say you can go around the terrible laws if you are politically favored. Why not just get rid of the laws?
Exactly.
He admits that they are not needed to protect the environment, or else he would not allow any projects to go around them. He admits that they block things from getting done. So isn't the solution just to get rid of the law? I mean, if you have a wall that's blocking everybody from getting where they need to go, why would you say that only a certain group of people are allowed to go around it and the rest must stand there facing that wall? Why not knock down the wall and allow us to develop our resources for real? I'll also note that the Prime Minister made a very troubling comment. I only heard it in French. I don't know if he said it in English, you might know. But he said that premiers will have a veto on resource projects and pipelines. Well, the most promising pipeline is from northern Alberta to the Pacific coast. And the NDP Premier of BC has said no to pipelines. So is the Prime Minister effectively saying we're not going to get any pipelines built? And if so, is he ceding to Donald Trump that the Americans will continue to get 80 to 90% of our energy projects products at enormous price discounts? It would appear to be the case. Now, look, Conservatives are happy to see any project, even one project, accelerated. And we will never stand in the way of even one project moving ahead because we are so desperate to see things built and Canadians working to do those projects. But we think that we need to take bold, across-the-board action for all projects. And that's why I'm announcing Conservatives will be happy to cooperate to pass a real national sovereignty law which would repeal Liberal C-69, the canker ban, the energy cap, the industrial carbon tax, and unlock our resources with shovel-ready zones that provide pre-permitting, clear conditions, and boundaries to start building mines, hydroelectric dams, nuclear plants, LNG liquefaction facilities, pipelines, and many more projects. We cannot wait. We do not need baby steps. We need breakthroughs. And Conservatives are here to work with all other parties to get it done because we want to put our country first. We want to be self-reliant, sovereign, and independent. And we want our people to have big, powerful paychecks that restore the Canadian promise that anyone who works hard gets a good life in our great country. Thank you very much.
Should Modi, is it appropriate for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to be attending the G7 in Kananaskis when there's an ongoing RCMP investigation into the Modi and government's potential involvement in the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar?
Thank you for the question. Look, India has been at the last 6 G7 conferences. It's one of the biggest and fastest growing economies in the world. We need to sell our natural gas, our civilian nuclear power technology, and other resource projects to India, and we need to work with India and other countries on trade and security. So we, as Conservatives, understand that the invitation is necessary, and that we want to see the government work on addressing security issues at the same time as when Prime Minister has those conversations with Prime Minister Modi.
Support legislation that improves the status quo. You said you would support legislation that improves the status quo. Does this meet the bar, and will you support it?
So we'll let you know on Wednesday. We have our caucus meeting Wednesday. It's baby steps when we needed a giant leap. Like I said in my remarks, we would vote in favor of accelerating even one project, even though we think there are literally thousands of projects that need to be accelerated. So our test is not whether or not legislation is perfect, but whether it is better than the way things are. And that's what we'll be looking at as we study this newly introduced bill over the next few days.
Minister Ananda Sangari said
fermé
à collaborer avec le gouvernement sur ce.
Okay, skip ahead here.
We are happy to collaborate with any of the parties on this bill, and we want to amend it to scrap the No Development Law C-69, the shipping ban, the energy cap, bring in shovel-ready zones, eliminate the industrial carbon tax. We will work on a nonpartisan basis with any party to do all of that before Canada Day. And if the Prime Minister is really interested in getting things done, I'm sure that he will work with us on that too.
Minister Ananda Sangari says that he'll have to recuse himself from any decisions based on the national security decisions related to the Tamil community. Are you concerned about a public safety minister who can't make decisions about that area?
I just learned of this afternoon, and I'd like to take a little more time to hear what he has said and what screen he's put in place before I offer a comment.
Like I said, trust me, this is going to explode. This is going to be huge. I'm going to be digging here tonight, doing a little bit of research on a lot of what he's done. He's definitely just another compromised Liberal MP. Yeah, Canada is in big trouble. We're broken. There's no doubt about it. And it's all mostly because of propaganda. We got to end the propaganda. I need you guys to like, share, and subscribe. Please. It not only helps me grow the channel, but it gets the news out there. It gets the facts. Sorry, just the facts, which is the goal. I mean, people, if they don't know what the facts are, then they're voting on what they believe, even though it's not real. Until next time, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I'm running a little bit long here. There was a lot to go through today, and of course, filled with my fabulous commentary. It's easy to kill time. Until the next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm Alias Tagay. Stay informed.